Hello, UK Crime Book Club. This is starting off well. A couple of tech hiccups already, but
My
we now
fault
have
entirely.
the fabulous Max Nightingale. We should
Where?
change your name, Jonathan.
Where? Oh God, I forgot.
It's you. So we'll get into pseudonyms and things and who came up with that cracker in a couple of minutes. But first, tell us a little bit about Murder in Tinseltown.
Thank you very much for having me. Lovely to be here as always. I feel like I feel like you haven't got rid of me this year. It's been one of those years, as we were talking about off air. But yeah, it's lovely to be back on the UK Crime Book Club live with you, and talking about Murder in Tinseltown. And despite what my little badge down there says, it's by Max Nightingale. It's a puzzle book, and it's out next week today, in fact. And essentially, you are transported back to 1958 Hollywood. So golden age of Hollywood, golden age of the pictures, and you take on the role of a LAPD homicide detective who is thrown into the deep end with the murder of a Hollywood starlet, the most famous woman in the world at the time, Blanche Ackerman. She's found dead in her suite in the rather luxurious Royal Premier hotel in Hollywood, and it's up to you to catch the killer. So it's a mystery novel, it's a crime novel, but it's in the vein of those classic sort of puzzle books from the 70s and 80s, 90s as well, a little bit, where you are thrust into the role of the main character, and how you go about solving the murder really is up to you. I was a big fan of those books growing up, massive fan of those books growing up.
Me too. I tried to find some for tonight, but I don't know where I've put them.
Yeah, do you know they were all like that? That was the thing about them. They were always tiny, right? They were always little thin things, and I loved them. Like, I grew up in the 1990s, and they were still about. They were kind of on the wane, because you had like sort of video games and stuff like that were starting to kind of take over that. Particularly, your Game Boy, your Nintendo Game Boy, or your what was the Sega one? The Game Gear, I think it was.
Master System and the Game Gear.
Batteries. Yeah, but the color screen, it was great. For shame, they were very much kind of replaced by that portable video gaming and stuff like that. And but I always used to get, I used to find them. We used to have them. They always used to crop up in like school tuck shops and things like that when I was at school, because you would always, one parent would always just empty out the cupboard somewhere and just go, right, okay, here. Usually my mother did it. But I would go about and I would replace the junk that my mother had gotten rid of for the tuck shop with more junk from somebody else's house at half the price. So it was always good fun. You were able to kind of find them and stuff. So yeah, I mean, like the kind of idea, weirdly, actually, I remember Anthony Johnson has got one coming out next summer, actually, and I've read it and it's fantastic.
I've not read it yet.
It's brilliant. It's absolutely fantastic. He's such a wonderful writer, and this is written so wonderfully well. And it's got some lovely mechanics to it as well. So everybody keep your eyes open for that one. But we'd workshopped this idea, I think, at the start of the year. We'd gotten chatting about it probably about a year ago now, maybe just under a year ago. And he did this. We both obviously kind of bonded over knowing these types of books, and he's got a wonderful background in kind of video game writing and stuff. And it kind of got me thinking about it. It got me thinking about wanting to maybe have a go at it myself. So the original idea had been to do a Bingo Hall Detectives version. That was the original idea.
Tell me that's in the plans.
Right. So thrust yourself into the being on a hunt for those that aren't familiar with Bingo Hall Detectives. That's my cozy series. So you would join the cast of the Bingo Hall Detectives with Jason and Amatow, the son-in-law, mother-in-law amateur detective duo, and you would help them solve a mystery, because that's the thing about those books, particularly cozy crime. This, viewers know this. You tend to find that more so in cozy crime than, say, a police procedural or psychological thriller when it comes to crime writing. You tend to have a lot more red herrings. And this sort of stuff is built on red herrings, right? It's built on you not taking the right path right away. So that was the original idea, and I kind of floated that to my agent, Matt at North Bank, who's a non-fiction agent, because this comes under non-fiction, this type of stuff. And he sort of suggested maybe thinking up of something completely original, something completely new. And I've always loved the golden age of Hollywood. You know, we're big musical fans in our house. You know, Singing in the Rain and White Christmas and, you know, Seven Brides for Seven Brothers and Calamity Jane and stuff. You know, that whole era. You know, my mother was bless her, was a huge Marilyn Monroe fan. So we grew up watching all these films, like, you know, Some Like It Hot and stuff, and this glamorous, this other world that existed between sort of, you know, 1920s and the start of the 60s, this golden age of Hollywood. And I thought that would be fantastic. You know, what a rich environment for you to find yourself in and to try and kind of catch a killer. So it's yeah. So you've got this murdered starlet on the eve of the big awards ceremony that she was going to be crowned the Queen of Hollywood, and she winds up dead, and it is literally up to you to try and catch the killer. Yeah,
and that's literally chapter 1, isn't it?
It is.
I'm just going to see if I can show the cover. I don't know. It's not coming up very clear on my. Can't see. Right, you are going to pop something in the group with the. I will.
Well, see, this is the thing.
That was shocking.
We were talking about this. Before we came on air, weren't we? It's like I'm the last person to get my hands on it. For those that aren't familiar, I live in Canada, so you know it's everything gets mailed over. But you know they had I think they got copies in the Harper North offices on I think it was last week, and North Bank, my agent, they got theirs today, and I've been really jealous. It's dreadful. It's a dreadful thing to be jealous of yourself, you know. So yeah, I feel so underprepared. So
no, absolutely not. To be fair, we did try to upload it, but it just we did. The computer said no, so we gave up and came on air. There was just no point. It's not happening.
Exactly.
Let's talk about the pseudonym.
Yes,
because that is an excellent pseudonym for time period as well.
Thank you. Yeah. So
who came up with that?
Well, it wasn't me, but I've said this before on the UK Crime Book Club. All the best bits, not the bits that people actually enjoy about my writing, I never actually do. So it's like, you know, I am merely the vessel through which genius flows. But poor genius. But yeah, so this was a thing that we kind of discussed. So it was all very, very quick, actually. So you know, this all kind of came together really quickly. And Harper North, who are my wonderful publisher with the Bingo Hole Detectives, they picked it up. They picked up Murder in Tinseltown, and Ben McConnell, who's my editor, or one of my editors at Harper North for this, he was the one that came up with Max Nightingale as the name, and he said, you know, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? Because the thing was, like, I hadn't really thought about it. I've rather egotistically, I just assumed that it would be my name on the front of it.
Well, I would have thought it would have been your name on the front, because obviously there's a history to your name.
There is. So... an infamous one.
But, you know, journalism, books, all the different things that you've done, courses you've taught, different things, it kind of would have made sense to keep your name in one way. But I can understand in another way why they wanted to separate from Max.
I mean, that was the thinking behind it. You know, the thinking behind it was to kind of try and separate it a little bit between, because it's not cozy. You know, it's not like it's not cozy, but I wouldn't sort of describe it as full on blood and guts either. And I think it's I think it's one of those things. I mean, like, you know, I said we discussed it. When the news went out, when the kind of press release went out into the bookseller and stuff like that, we talked about, you know, how much do I pretend it's not me, right? Because, you know, I was perfectly happy to do that. I was like what I didn't want to do was I didn't want to be disingenuous with it, right? You know, I wanted to shout from the rooftops about it and get as much promotion with it and stuff, and as all writers do, right? And and that's okay. But what I didn't want to do, I didn't want to be disingenuous. I didn't want to be going on Twitter or Blue Sky or Facebook or Instagram or what have you and say, "Oh gosh, this looks amazing." You know, what's this? Who's this from Max Knight? You know, I didn't, you know, it didn't really sit with me. And so I said, you know, we talked about it. We had a kind of fairly lengthy discussion about it, and what I was dreading, right? What I was dreading was that, you know, the publisher would say, well, could you start a whole new raft of social media channels as Max Nightingale? And the thought of starting it up with a 0 followers, because I'm getting it at the moment, right? Like I'm one of these late people to Blue Sky. And I saw actually Ben here in the UK Crime Book Club has put together a fantastic list of UK Crime Book Club authors. Fantastic list. Great list, actually, really, really handy, especially for me who's kind of come to this
brand new and
and so I'm kind of going through that a little bit at the moment, because you go on there, you don't have any followers and stuff, so it's, you know, you're having to build up this audience from scratch, and like, you know, I didn't have the soul for it. I had to do it across, you know, multiple channels. So when they said, look, you know, it's not a big secret that Jonathan Whitelaw is Max Nightingale and so on and so forth. Because the thing is, like, Max Nightingale is also kind of who the detective is. You know, it's like he's got his own biography in the, you know, on the kind of various pages and stuff like that. And it's, you know, so he himself, you know, you embody him. You are Max Nightingale. We're all Max Nightingale, right? But it's a fantastic name, and it just, I mean, as soon as Ben suggested it, it was like, that's it, right? That's the it's got to be, it can't be anything else, right? Because it's got that, you know, noir,
got that gravitas, that whole thing about it.
Exactly. That kind of, you know, the smoke billowing in front of your face, but everything's in black and white, right? The white tuxedo, it's Humphrey Bogart. It's absolutely fantastic. Yeah. So I'm very lucky. Very lucky.
And I wrote down that I'm clearly not got the right page open, but when I started, it's chapter 5 where we get the first choice. So for anyone who doesn't know, just explain briefly what kind of happens, how the books work. We should really go with that before I tell you what happened to me.
Absolutely. So we're there's about kind of five chapters of the kind of setup, right? Because I always do this in my books. I don't know if anybody's ever noticed it, but like I always tend to, it's, you know, it's a widely used sort of writing technique, is that you're kind of you know, your first 5 chapters are where you set out the set up shop essentially for the story. You know, what's happened. If you're a crime writer like me, usually you've got a body or a crime or what have you, introduced to people, place, and all the rest of it. That's what actually it's a handy piece of info to think about. I've got my teacher's hat on. There we go. It's just that easy to, you know, flip between it. But I've got my teacher's hat on. If you're an aspiring writer, especially a crime writer, if you're an aspiring writer, there's a reason that, you know, agents and publishers ask for either the first 10,000 words or the first 5 chapters when you're on submission, and that's usually because if you get to the end of the first 5 chapters and you've not got a murder, or you've not got a crime, or you've not introduced the detective, or you've not set the scene and stuff like that, then, you know, it's getting a little bit long. You can do it in less than 5 chapters, obviously, but I kind of like to stick to that 5 chapter rule where you've set up everything in the first 5 chapters, and then from chapter 6 you kind of get down to telling the story, what the story is. I call it taking the foot off the gas. That's like when I do my kind of creative writing workshops and stuff, I always say, you know, you take you hammer the accelerator to chapter 6. Then when you hit chapter 6, take the foot off the gas and start to tell the story, essentially. So we kind of did this again. It was a bit of a debate. It was a debate as to how long we wanted to have, you know, how much we wanted to have the setup, as opposed to actually just throwing the reader into the you know, the puzzle. So we kind of settled on the 5 chapters, and, you know, when you get to the end of the 5th chapter, that's where it's over to you, right? You know, you're immediately hit with your first choice, your first decision that you've got to make to carry on the story. And, you know, without kind of going into the details and stuff like that as to what happens in the first chapter, that sets up this universe, right? This world, and then you've got this choice where I think it's maybe 2 or 3 choices you get at the start, and from then on in, there's dozens and dozens of possibilities that you can get to. Some interlink, some don't. Some lead to dead ends. Some don't lead to dead ends. Some take you all the way back to the start. Sometimes you can't.
You don't need to tell me. I was not good at this. It was a lot of fun, but I was terrible at it. I won't say what happened to me at the first choice in chapter 5, at the end of chapter 5, but it wasn't good. You know what happened to me there.
I do.
I was going to say kind of what happened, and then I thought, no.
I have a suspicion I know what happened. Yeah, rather unfortunate, but
don't say it.
But listen, this is the fun of these things, right? And like it was always the fun that I had doing them.
Yeah, but I was so sure.
And that was the thing. Like it was, see being on the other side of it, see being on the writing side of it. It was like there was plenty of times that like I felt, am I being too cruel here? Is this is this just being? Am I just toying with the reader too much?
Yeah.
Because that's the thing.
Not too much, no.
When you've got when you're writing like your traditional mystery novel, like it's pretty linear, right? It's I always say this in my kind of workshops and stuff. It's like, as crime writers, we've got this wonderful advantage over any other sort of genre fiction or any kind of fiction, in that we've got a ready-made story arc whenever we sit down, because you've got the crime, which is usually a murder, the investigation, and then the resolution, catching the bad guy, the bad woman, right? Whereas if you're writing lit fic, you've got to come up with that story arc, and that involves very, very different things. And because we've got these three already in place, it means it's up to you to take advantage of that and add your own spin to it and stuff like that. So, but when you write something like this, you realize that there's all those times that you thought that you could go off in different directions and actually had to stick to one, because that's how these things tend to work. Yeah. Suddenly you don't have that restriction anymore, and it's a good and a bad thing, right? It's a good and a bad thing. It took me a little bit of getting used to it. When I first started writing it, it took quite a bit of getting used to, actually, that suddenly you don't have to just go straight down.
But did you do that initially when you set off? Did you have kind of what you thought the main strand could be, and then kind of add the other bits in?
I got there eventually. Right.
Okay.
I got there eventually, and I should have from the start. So what I tried to do, see, this is the thing, Sam. Like, I am a dreadful bore and a dreadful narcissist, clearly. Where I thought, what I'll do is I'll write all the threads at the same time. So that's what I started doing. So I had, there's 5, 6, 7 main threads, and you've got intertwining bits and stuff like that. So, like, if you imagine it like a tree, and the roots are growing down all at once, that's what I was doing. So this was the progress line, and I'm moving down like that. And it was driving me nuts, right? Like, I was literally driving myself nuts, because you're trying to anticipate different things happening in different threads that might then come back. And then, so I always try and write at least sort of 2,000 words a day. If I'm writing a traditional novel, mine, I'll try and aim for anywhere between 2,000 and 3,000 words a day. Depends where I'm at and the process stuff. We talked about this, and loads of other authors talked about it.
Yeah.
You can write more at the end than you can at the start, stuff like that. I was lucky for the first, I'd say maybe 4 or 5 weeks, if I was getting 200, 300 words down. Wow. And it was a slot. That was me at it all day. It wasn't just sitting doing 30 minutes and then that was it. And it was getting to the point of distraction, right? Because I was annoyed at myself for only doing 200-300 words. I was annoyed at myself that it was being really, really complicated. I felt that I was overcomplicating it. So I took like maybe a couple of days off, and I went back to it, and I thought, right, I can't go back and keep doing this, right? Because it's not working. And I'm a big advocate for that. Again, for any other writers and any aspiring writers, is that you've got to be flexible as an author, and flexible with every part of it, whether it's the writing part of it, or it's your characters or the setting. Any part of change, that you'll be flexible. The best writers in the world are the ones that are most flexible. And I thought, well, take a dose of my own medicine. what can I do differently here? What can I do? And I exactly your idea, Sam. I decided, let me take one thread, let me take one strain, and do that from start to finish, the way that I would write any other, any other piece of work, and then worry about branching that off or what have you, later. And it was a complete revelation, a total revelation, and I genuinely can't describe how much of a 180 it was, going from literally writing 200-300 words a day to going back to writing 2,000, sometimes 4,000 words a day with these threads, and being able to see the whole picture of how everything fits together. It's that wonderful meme of it's the Goodwill Hunting stuff with all the equations and stuff. Suddenly,
all the equations, and they're looking up at it. Yeah,
exactly. Our Beautiful Mind. It's not a Goodwill Hunting. It's A Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe. Sorry, I'm getting my memes mixed up. So yeah, it was a total game changer, complete game changer, and I shudder to think if I'd stuck to writing it all together, how it would happen. And bless, there's the piper's always got to be paid, as they say. So the doing that meant that there was, I've only ever submitted, manuscripts in one document. But bless Ben at Harper North and Meg latterly at Harper North, we were operating through the editing process across maybe 5-6 different documents. And then it went to the line edits and stuff like that. And it was, it's been a real eye-opening experience to put something like this together. It's been really, really good fun, but it's been very, very, very different. And I'm so appreciative of the team behind the scenes, because they've been so patient and they've been so diligent and they've been so enthusiastic about the whole thing, particularly when they wanted to say, Jonathan, throw the keyboard out the window. You're not allowed to write anything ever again. Something like that,
Before I go to the comments, because I am looking, Donna, I can see that there are comments and questions. I won't hog him forever. I wanted to ask you about researching character names and kind of dialogue from the time, because it's that late 50s, the end of the 50s, and it seems like a perfect choice. You've got this gorgeous hotel. You can literally picture it. You can picture yourself sweeping through the doors and then, being met with this scene. And you just kind of ruin everything straight away.
It's always the same, right? It's
always one of the biggest nights of the year.
But we're like, Sam, this is what crime writers do. I've said this before to on here, talking about the cozy stuff, is that you do terrible things to lovely people. And there's nothing is safe from us, right? Everything gets ruined. Everything gets tarred. I was doing an interview for this last week, and somebody, it's like I'm a published author 10 years next year, right, in March, which is terrifying, right? Terrifying. I genuinely don't know where the time's gone. And I was asked, what's different now in 2024, 2025 to what it was like when you were first published in 2015? And I said, my body count has just gone through the roof. I must be getting close to Arnie and Stallone numbers now with the amount of dead bodies that are littered around my career, right? And that's just what we do, right? The classic one is never look at a crime writer's Google search history, because it'll terrify you, right? And if the police saw it, you'd have them knocking down the door. So there's always you can never enjoy anything as a crime writer. Crime readers never get to enjoy anything. The nicer it is, the worse it's going to be, right? Oh, it's good fun though.
Donna's teasing us because she's saying that I'll come and check the comments at some point. So, I'm checking the comments and paying attention. It's just that I can't really see them all on Facebook. So it ends up being really annoying not being able to see them. There is a cracking shot of us, though, in the beginning of the...
Are we at loggerheads?
No, we're laughing. It was really good. We're actually laughing on it. Oh, I cannot see all of the comments. It is just appalling.
It's a rare thing for us to be laughing with each other.
Absolutely.
Because we actually can't stand each other. That's the thing, right? It's all for show business, darling, right?
Absolutely. And if I could kill my darlings, you'd be the first one.
Yes.
Sarah's asking if you're in the UK next year, Stockport, Bay Tales.
Yeah, it should be. Yeah, I don't have anything at the moment. Well, I don't have anything planned at the moment, but so I've had a year off. I've had a year off from being in the UK this year because my wife was pregnant for the majority of it. I was meant to be back. For the launch of the concert hall Killer back in the spring, and that got binned very last minute because of the wildfires that we sometimes get here in the prairies. It was just dreadful timing. I wasn't able to make it. I was able to do some online stuff subsequently, which was good. But yeah, my wife was pregnant. Our second born was born in August, start of August, and I've missed it. I'll be honest. It's been over a year since I was back. The last time I was back was bloody Scotland in 2023. Which is September 2023. So yeah, so it's been what 14 months or something like that since I've been back. So it's yeah, I've missed it. I've missed being back, missed seeing everybody and doing the circuit. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I've been really, really lucky to be able to do a lot of stuff over here in Canada. Like I did Motive in Toronto for the second year, which is great. That's the big sort of crime and mystery festival. That was in July, I think, end of June, start of July. Did a festival down a place called Lethbridge here in Alberta in September. We had never been to it before. Did a couple of things in Calgary as well. I was in Vancouver last year, so it's been really, really nice to see a bit more of Canada. Yeah. I'd never been to before. But I've missed everybody. Yeah, I've missed seeing everybody in the flesh. This is great fun, obviously, but it's nice to be in the same room.
Donna says we've missed you.
Oh,
and there's congratulations from people as well. So
thank you very much. Thank
you. Yeah, I know we talked about this before, but what was the kind of? I know you said you were talking to Anthony Johnston about the idea of kind of doing one of these books, but I remember getting to chapter 2. And not expecting to be the detective so quickly, and had this little heart sore of, oh, we're here, we're in it. It must have been the most exciting thing starting to write that bit, knowing that you're putting the reader in, through the detective's eyes.
Do you know that's the thing? Like, we chatted about it obviously at the start of the hour, and like, it's really, really surprised me that we haven't had more of these.
Yeah,
it's taken this long to get for the industry to be happy to go for something like this again. There's lots of reasons for it, right? Maybe those of us of a certain vintage that remember these things, we're getting to that age now where we quite like the nostalgia of it and being able to kind of re-immerse ourselves. I know I do, right? That's been great fun. But as everybody knows here in the UK Crime Book Club, obviously crime and mystery fiction is so popular, and there's countless reasons as to why that is. But one of them for me as a reader, because obviously I'm a voracious reader of crime fiction, and it would be anyway whether I was a writer of it or not. One of the things for me is that you get to immerse yourself in these stories and you get to know these characters, and particularly with series, right? And crime fiction is littered with series. It lends itself really, really well. Coming back and being on the case with a detective that detectives that villains that is great fun. And having the opportunity to be the detective and being able to kind of make that choice and make that decision is what a thrill, right? And it's a thrill for me as the writer, right? Because when I write a bingo hall detectives book or what have you, I'm the detective, right? Because I've got to work through the investigation, even though I know who did it. I've got to work through the investigation with my characters, like Jason and Amateur, what have you. But getting to share that with someone else and getting to share that with the readers, and it's a sharing process, and being able to, being now able to share this process with everybody else, it's really cool. It's really, really nice. It's a really, really nice. It's very, very different. Really, really different to anything else. Like I said, that I've written, and hopefully good fun. I mean, that's it, right? We want it to be fun. Hopefully, it's good fun.
It was so much fun. like straight from the off. It was so much fun. I turned to my husband and I'm just giggling away. It's like it. It's just like stepping back in time and being thrust into this thing, and the giggles weren't because there were funny bits. Don't get me wrong, but it was just joy. It was pure childhood joy bubbling out of me.
I'm glad
And
to
I
hear
think
that.
that's just such a lovely thing.
Yeah. And you know, that's like I saw something the other day. I think it was yesterday. I saw it on social media talking about Star Wars, right? You know, Star Wars franchise, and like some movie insider said that, like, you know, Star Wars is a property built on nostalgia, right? It's, you know, it's old enough. It's 40, 50 years old or whatever it is, and you know, every series and every TV show and every film that comes out is essentially tapping into the nostalgia, because of course, it's aimed at kids who are discovering it fresh, but it's also aimed at their parents who remember discovering it fresh when they were that age, right? And I think, like I'm really, really glad that the industry is on board with something like this, because I think, you know, it's good fun. They were always good fun. These kinds of books were always good fun, but all kinds of puzzle books are good fun. You know, Myrtle, I've got Myrtle on the shelf there. Myrtle's great fun, right? It's again, kind of puts you in the position of the detective, and you're the one that's got to solve it. And you know, Cluedo was another one, right? The board game Cluedo was another one where you immerse yourself in the in the role, and there's loads and loads of examples, right? Not just in crime fiction, but you know, Football Football Manager now used to be Championship Manager. You know, the video game where you play
really, you're asking me?
A gaffer, a football gaffer, but you're running the club, so you're doing you're doing the scouting of the players and stuff. Like, you know, you look at that game now that's evolved over the last 25, 30 years, and you've got pie charts. Like, people and it's become this thing in popular culture where they spend more time, you know, working out, scouting under 15 players from South America. They spend more time doing that than they do their jobs. But it's just a game, right? It's just a game, and it's so it's really, I think it's a really, really exciting time. I think you know, I think over the next year and coming years, I'm hopeful, and we've been, like I said, we've been treated, obviously there's loads and loads of Myrtle now, and I saw the news this week or last week actually, that's getting turned into Myrtle's getting turned into this whole kind of sort of cinematic TV universe now. Ooh. Where there's going to be TV series and stuff. You know, like it's fantastic. It's really, really good. And actually, sort of post pandemic, maybe the pandemic gave this kind of stuff a bit of a jump start, because you know, it's not just, like I said, it's not just stuff like that, like Hurdle, Wordle, you know, all these things. They just blossomed, didn't they?
Absolutely. I still play Wordle every day.
So yeah, I think it's really, really good, and it's really rewarding to be able to be part of that, and to get to write something like this, because it's different as well, right? It's different for me as a writer, and as much as I love writing the Bingo Hall Detectives books and would write them until the end of time, getting to try something new, not just new characters and stuff like that, but so different, such a different format and such a different way of writing and different approaching it, and keeping me on my toes as a writer, like it's been the biggest challenge of my writing career, writing Murder in Tinseltown, but it's been among, if not the most enjoyable. But that's, like, you know, you can't pick a favorite kid, right? So it comes with a little.
No, you can't. Laura's saying she's looking forward to getting this for Christmas. If her mum's showing the bloke in a local Waterstones pic of the cover works. And G's asked, I don't know, I'm not ignoring your question, it's just we've gone through that one, so I'm going to go on to G's. Did you have to take some long walks and have a word with yourself to get the pacing right, to ensure the choices fell in the right places? Sounds like you did.
Do you know, like, I was a lot more worried that it was going to make less sense when I sent it when I did it, because it got, you know, like any project, like any writing project, you get to that stage where you've overread it, right, and you're over familiar with it, and what you're reading, you're not reading, you've memorized it because you've read it so many times, and I think with something like this, because it was so intricate and so many different moving parts and different cogs and things like that, I definitely got to that saturation stage where I thought, you know, no matter, with the best will in the world, if I look at it again I already know the alternatives and how this is going to end long before I make the choice, right? So, so I was pretty nervous when I sent it to Harper North, when I sent it to the editors there, because my worry was that they were going to come back and say, Jonathan, none of this works, right? Like it just doesn't work. And actually, I mean, there were a couple of times where it didn't work, right? You know, there was a couple of times where I just missed it or what have you, or you know, certain parts had moved, the story had moved on a little bit further, depending on what choice you're on. But getting back to editing it and getting back to seeing it and having that fresh set of eyes on it and having the opportunity to go back and fix it was pretty rewarding as well, because you're never going to get it. It's like first drafts, right? You know, you never ever get it. And I think with something like this, you know, it's draft after draft. I don't know how many drafts we went through actually. I can't. I kind of, you know, I wasn't counting because it just needed to get fixed. It needed to get right, because if you're writing like a traditional mystery, it's one of those things that if the killer needs to be at the corner of Main Street at 12:05, sorry, a.m., you just write it that way and you make sure that they're there and then everything lines up. Whereas with this, because you're different, you know, things are all running at different paces and some crossover and then some re-crossover and go back and stuff. So it was always a worry. It was always something that I was very, very aware of when I was writing it, to make sure that these kind of things happened. And again, you know, editors are magicians. I've said this before, I've said this forever. They really, really are. And I kind of feel that this time in particular, they spun Megan and Ben at Harper North spun their magic and pulled this thing together and made it not only look fantastic, but make sense as well, which is nice. Hopefully. But yeah, it's strange. It's been a strange experience. It really, really has. It's been strange in nearly every sense. But really, really good fun. Really, really weirdly, really, really good fun to do. It's been great.
Are there more genres that you'd like to try within, kind of under the crime umbrella, or would you advise other writers who maybe have been writing one thing to just dabble a bit, try other things?
Well, absolutely. I'd
do you
always
feel like it was refreshing for you? I know you said it was kind of it was nice to do something different.
It was really, really nice to do. So I kind of had something very, very similar last year. The announcement's been made, so I've got a standalone coming out next summer called All at Sea, and that's a, you know, it's a classic, you know, it's just a crime book, right? It's not just a crime book, but it's a crime book where it's a traditional narrative and stuff. And it was a discussion that I'd had with my agent probably nearly 2 years ago, actually, about it. And it's also coming out from Harper North. And that was the first time that I'd sat down and written new characters in a new setting for about 2.5, 3 years. Because up until that point, all I'd been writing really was Bingo Hall Detectives books, which was great, which was, you know, and still is. But that was a real eye opener for me, because, you know, I've always said, I think I've said this here as well, is that, you know, I never ever wanted to get into that state of complacency, because when you get complacent with your writing, then you get lazy with your writing, and you know, when you write a series, you have the luxury of you already knowing the characters and just reintroducing them every book. And that takes out a lot of work. You know, it takes out a lot of the writing process, actually. And you know, it's not, I'm not gonna say that it makes it easier, because writing isn't easy. But it's a whole chunk of the writing process that you don't have to do book in, book out. Whereas when I went back to write All at Sea or start All at Sea, I had to start, you know, completely blank. And actually the process of doing that, I think, probably set me up a lot better for doing Tinseltown, because I'd retrained myself into doing this again. So it wasn't as much of a kind of culture shock to sit down and craft, you know, who Max Nightingale is, who Blanche Akerman is, you know, Peter Von Helst, you know, all this kind of cavalcade of characters that you get in Murder in Tinseltown, because I'd spent a year or 6 months, whatever it was, writing All at Sea, not that long before it. So the thing is, It's the weirdest man writing. What a gig! Bloody hell, right? Like I've just finished the line edits for the fourth Bingo book, and that's what I was doing this week. I was editing the fourth Bingo book because it's out at the end of January, and like see going back, like having been transported back in time to 1950s Hollywood, where everything's so glamorous and everything's glittering and everything's brand new and shiny and well polished and famous, to then go back to Penrith with
everyone trussed up in big coats and
big coats and
wellies,
knitted jumpers and old trainers and stuff like that. It was fantastic. it was great. It was so much fun. And it was really, really good. And it was really, really nice. It was really nice to be able to sit down and be able to just have a normal narrative. Just only have one thread that I had to worry about. Yeah, so it's been a busy year.
Just a little. One of the other fun things about this is the little pictures throughout.
Yes, the avatar.
Yeah. So, for example, I wrote down the chalk outline sitting up the crime scene.
Yep.
So there's kind of different bits where we get the questions, and there'll be like a little drawing at the side of the question, and they're just really fun. Now, you're a big kid. You must have loved that.
Well, I got to choose them. I got to choose which went where, which was fantastic, which was really, really good fun. But I mean, that was the thing. Like like when we first started getting the visuals through from Harper North as to how it was going to look. Because again, like I'm terrible for this sort of thing. I was the same with Bingo Hall Detectives. Like I don't have an eye for this kind of thing. Like I sit and write the thing, and thankfully, like people that know what they're doing, actual professionals know what they're doing. They kind of take care of these sorts of things. When I got the first kind of cover through or the first kind of renders for what it was going to look like, because it was going to we had considered going green instead of red. But it just didn't. There was something about the red and the gold and the black that really kind of sparkled, and it really
pops. Life. Yeah.
But I love the little avatars, because you've got like a little Max Nightingale at the top, and then you've got a kind of Blanche Akerman in a roadster down the bottom, and then you've got the gangsters mall and the detective and the crime scene and stuff like that. And I think it helps. I think it helps with the puzzle. I think because at the end of the day, it is a puzzle book, right? It's not it's a narrative, and it's narratives that you can follow through and you can choose them and stuff like that. At the end of the day, it's a puzzle that you've got to solve. It's the same way that kind of Myrtle and stuff like that, in the same vein. And I think that those kind of visuals really, really helped the process, and it helped me actually in the editing process as well, because I was going, right, okay, well, what does this fit into, and how would that work? And because that's the thing, like, it's a lot more involved, and it has been a lot more involved, the process for me as a writer and the editorial team behind it to do this. Because, like I said, it doesn't come under fiction; it comes under non-fiction. And I, the only non-fiction I had experience of, obviously, was my journalism career, so not in the publishing world. So that's been nice as well. It's the whole thing's been really, really enlightening and kind of shed light on different parts of the industry, different processes, different ways of editing, different visuals and stuff. It's been good fun.
What about young adult versions of these, so your boys don't have to wait until they're older to read what Daddy's written? There's some bits in which, like you said, they're not cozy. Like you said, they're not cozy, so we won't say anything.
This is the thing. I'd love. I think Myrtle has really opened the door for this. Like the absolute runaway success of Myrtle has really reopened the door for these types of books to get back. I mean, that was the whole thing when I was speaking to Anthony Johnson about. That was partly why we were having this conversation, was that like it kind of felt like the right time for something like this to come along or come back along. That maybe it didn't 10 years ago, maybe it didn't 20 years ago, or what have you, or even 5 years ago, something like that. And that's how this industry works, right? It takes a massive success, and then suddenly reinvigorates a genre or what have you, and you find that you've got writers who maybe wouldn't have maybe wanted to do it but didn't have the opportunity to do it before getting to write in these types of fields. Cozy Crime's another great example of that, right?
Yeah.
Like some of the
really blown up.
Again, Anthony Johnson's another example of it. Alice Bell. Myself, would I have sat down and wanted to write a cozy crime the way that I write them now 15 years ago before I was published? Probably not, right? But because the whole subgenre has been reinvigorized and regenerated and contemporized, then you get all these wonderful writers applying themselves to that particular subgenre, and you get wonderful results, as we've seen. We've been treated to it. So I think, I think there's definitely a potential for this, and the thing about a puzzle book is that inherently it can go across ages, right? Age groups, and you've got YA, you've got maybe even younger readers as well, because that's the thing. Like when I read them, I was 10, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, that kind of age. And I think that's what they were aimed at before, in the kind of 70s and 80s and stuff like that. So yeah, absolutely. I can't see why it wouldn't, why there wouldn't be any room for that. So it's nice. It would be lovely. It would be lovely if that's how the direction the industry took, would be that you have these new generations of kids reading these kind of books the way that we did, right? And where it goes from there would be lovely to see that. It would be lovely to see that. But that's the future, right? Today's to come, as they say.
What is the plan for launch day? So I didn't give you long enough to have a sip then.
I think so. I think I'll hang upside down in my cupboard. I'll have Michael Keaton's Batman. I think, I don't know. I haven't really thought about it. I think is I'm back at work, right? I'm working on something else at the moment, and I've had the edits obviously for Bingo 4 this week, and I'm working on something that I'd like done before the end of the year. And then there's something else that I'd like to start at the start of the year. It's just, I mean, like I remember when I was a journalist and I was working 8 days a week, I thought I was busy. It doesn't compare to this, right? It really, really doesn't compare to this. But it's a lovely problem to have. I'm hugely, hugely grateful to be able to do what I'm doing, and people keep reading them, whether they enjoy them or not. That's up to them. Obviously, I hope they enjoy them. But it's good fun. It's great fun. It doesn't feel like work. But no, I think like we've kind of developed this thing since we've moved to Canada, where like we'll get like takeaway pizza on publication day. So we get like 2 big pizzas and chicken wings and all the stuff that's really, really bad for you. We'll probably do that, and I'll, as I always do, share on social media gratuitously. I might even share it on Blue Sky because this is the whole new big thing. So I'm very, very excited about that. But yeah, I think I'll just quietly hope that it goes well.
You have to get yourself one of those little party hats that elastic,
and
one of those blower things that unroll as you. And every time you make a sale,
I'm just a big Scrooge. I'm how Scrooge is before the ghosts arrive, but I'm like that all year round, not just at Christmas.
But you're also a big kid, so I could literally see you doing
true.
that.
That's true, and I love things that make noise, and I love things that light up. See, now that I've got kids, both my kids are under 4 years old. I'm like happy as a pig in dung, as they say, with pressing, squeaking things. Like anything that squeaks, I'll squeak it. Anything that clicks or buttons or lights up, I get more enjoyment out of it than the kids do.
Oh, your poor wife.
I love a button. I've always loved a button, and it's like such a shame that phones have gone the way that they've gone, because I used to like clicking the your Nokia and your Nokia 3310 and a BlackBerry.
That very satisfying. Yeah,
wonderful. Anyway, I know that you can make your iPhone click, but it's not the same.
Can you? No,
my phone's not that fancy. Right, you turn the volume up on it, but it's not the same as a good click, a good light.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah,
I like a good switch.
Speaking again of you being a big kid, there was a picture of you when it got really cold the start of last winter.
Yep.
Throwing something.
Yes, hot water.
Have you done other things like this as well? Tell us about the hot water first.
So that was, yeah. You know how you see these things in the internet, you think it's a myth, right? So we've been over here since 2022, so this is our third winter here, and weirdly,
that's gone fast.
It has. I can't believe it. Like, yeah, we're 3 years here in May, and I'm eligible for Canadian citizenship in May, which is, again, can't believe. Like, when we first came over here, that felt like, this whole thing. So I'd seen this, it's famous, right? It's old. It's been on the internet for 100 years, and it's like you get boiling hot water.
But it's funny when you see somebody do it.
Well, this is the thing, right? So every year that we've been here, we've had maybe about a week, 10 days worth of -40, right? And that's cold even by Canadian standards. That's cold, but it never ever lasts. So it's snowing right now, right? We've got like the first of the kind of major snow. It's happening literally right now outside my window.
Not jealous at all.
But it's not cold. Right, it's like -3, -4, but it's not cold. You wouldn't go out in your shorts and t-shirt, but you could go out the way that you ordinarily go out at this time of the year and wouldn't feel. Obviously, it's slushy and snow and icy and stuff like that. But where we are, it's in the prairies. Alberta's right at the kind of western edge of the prairies, and we're really, really high up. It's really, really high elevation where we are, and it means that the atmosphere is so much different to how it is in the UK. I did Bay Tales a couple of years ago, and I literally flew from Calgary Airport the night before, -15, snow falling in chunks the size of fists. They're having to de-ice the plane and all that before you take off. It was what it was. I landed at Heathrow, got the train up to Newcastle railway station, got off at Newcastle, and I kid you not, my feet turned to ice. And I pulled my jacket about me. I thought, oh my God, what is going on here? Checked my phone, it was like +6. So of course I got it in the neck that whole weekend at Bay Tales, saying, well, we thought you were this big experienced Canadian outdoorsman and you can't handle a little bit of North Sea +6, Jonathan. But it's different, right? The UK atmosphere is very, very wet, and whereas here it's so dry, and the snow's like powder, right? The snow's like you can't build snowmen from it because it's like powder, because it's so dry. So yeah, but -40 is cold. So what happened was we hit -40, and I thought, right, do you know what? I'm going to have a shot at this. Being the scientist at heart that I am. So we got the mug, poured the boiling hot water into it, went out onto our balcony off our bedroom, and you've seen the video evidence of it, and it happened. You see, what happened.
So tell everybody else what happened if they've not seen it.
I threw the water up, right, the boiling hot water, and it evaporated. It froze essentially. The water. I don't know the science of it. I'm not anywhere near clever enough to be. As much as I'm a scientist at heart, I'm a populist scientist, not an actual scientist. So you threw the mug up, and the water vanished. Vanished into thin air, and it was the most remarkable thing that you see something like that. You see it for your own eyes. Another thing that we get a lot of the Northern Lights here, every second week. And you can see it with your own eye, like you can see it with you stand it and you look up, and it's all happening up there, and it's remarkable. Yeah, it's just very different, right? It's great. It's really, really good. We've been made to feel at home here, so it's
that's lovely.
Yeah. But I've missed, like I said, missed the UK. Missed the UK this past year.
But the politeness and friendliness of Canadians is not a stereotype.
Never ending.
No.
Never ending. Yeah, it's like I said, we've been made to feel. All of us have been made to feel right at home. From the off, it's Alberta as a province is home now, and we're moving to Calgary next spring. So we're where we are is a kind of small rural city, but we're moving to Calgary, which is one of the biggest cities in Canada, next spring. So it's one less flight for me when I'm going over to the UK. Excited about that. We'll be sad to leave where we're at just now.
Yeah.
But we've got new opportunities and stuff like that down there. It's I can't believe it's been as long as it's been. But it never feels this long, right? Because we get to do this sort of stuff, right? It doesn't matter if I'm sitting in Alberta or I'm sitting in Aberdeen. That's the wonders of technology, and one of the great things about the UK Crown Book Club is that you always feel connected to everybody else that's in the group, and it's and I get so much support from you and the other admins and readers, and I'll stop before I get emotional.
And on that lovely note, it's 8 o'clock. So that hour, as usual, has absolutely flown. Thank you so much, Max Nightingale, for joining us.
A pleasure.
Thank you to everyone for taking the mickey in the comments, as usual. Much appreciated. And go out and buy this because it is brilliant. It is one of those things that will make you feel like a kid again. It's so exciting. So, absolutely loved it. Absolutely just was thrilled going through it. Honestly, it's the most fun. But thank you. I hope you come back for whichever book is next.
I've no doubt. I think I'll be back sort of February time. So the new bingo book's out in the tail end of January. So I'll probably be back February, March time, which is exciting. I'm looking forward to being back.
We look forward to it. So we'll see you then. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.